something pretty new from SIG Sauer. It is the P320 SUBCOMPACT, the tiniest P320, brand new, still wearing its mommy and daddy just took me home from the hospital bracelet. Okay, so this newest addition to the P320 family is called the SUBCOMPACT. And yes, it is even smaller than the compact. This is really, finally, the P320 that is a viable option, a realistic option for concealed carry. This is a very small, relatively thin, even by current standards, pistol. Let's take a first look at it out of the box, talk about some of the basic specifications, and then let's get this bad boy out and put 100 rounds through it. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, this is literally is the way it comes in the box. So it comes with a polymer holster. See, I knew when Springfield Armory started doing that everybody else was going to have to play me too eventually. So SIG provides you with a polymer holster, branded with their name on it, and you can see that it says P320 SUBCOMPACT. So yeah, so there is some interchangeability there. And here she is, the P320 SUBCOMPACT, the very, very diminutive P320. I'm one of those weirdos who actually saves these, so I make a little bit of a production about cutting it off. All right. Well, that was easy. All right, there we go. All right, so there's the bracelet out of the way. And the part of the gun that's actually considered the gun is this internal chassis system with the firing group, the trigger group, and so on. And that is removable, and you can change the entire, what we would typically call the frame. SIG actually calls that the frame. And then this polymer shell, if you will, or grip, as they may just refer to it, can be interchanged, as can the slide, so you can change calibers and so forth. They come in various sizes, but there are no interchangeable parts, so there's no back strap that you can change on this, or any side panels or anything of that nature. They come in basically small, medium, and large, and this is the small. It seemed obvious to me to go small if you're going to go small. Now the SUBCOMPACT has a slightly reduced amount of beaver tail, and obviously it's an overall smaller gun. So let's talk about just some of the main specifications of it. The overall length of this gun is 6.7 inches, so beaver tail to muzzle, 6.7. Height of it is 4.7, so they have definitely shaved off. Let me put this mag back in, give it a true look. Well, they've definitely shaved off some significant. They have definitely taken some of the significant height and reduced that. The barrel of the SUBCOMPACT is 3.6 inches, shorter than the compact, which is 3.9 inches, so 0.3 shorter. Sight radius is 5.5 inches on this gun, which is not that much shorter than the, I believe it's about 5.8 or 5.9 on the compact. So you're not giving up a whole lot, really, in terms of sight radius. And this one, you see the the fixed 3-dot combat sights. These are not SIG Light night sights. Okay, so these are just the standard contrast, they call them. The gun weighs, with an empty magazine, 25 ounces. So it's pretty light. Really not a whole lot to it. The slide is made out of stainless steel. It's finished with nitron. The very durable, good quality SIG Sauer nitron finish. The frame or chassis inside is made of stainless steel. Down the road we'll get some closer looks at that. This has a 12 round capacity. You can see 12 on the magazine there, so that means 12 plus 1. So you can be carrying 13 rounds of 9mm, which is not bad at all in this small of a subcompact footprint. The trigger action type is double action only. It's a striker fired gun. Double action only trigger. And the trigger pull is published at between 5.5 and 6.5 pounds. So very similar to a Glock published trigger pull. I'll put a gauge on it myself and see, or maybe take a look at it new in the box, and then after putting 100 or 2 rounds through it, and see if that loosens up any. All right, so those are the basic specifications, and there is the gun. Now, a lot of people would want to say, well, you know, give me some comparison, give me some basis for comparison with this gun. So probably the most common thing that people are going to want to see, or maybe the thing that they would understand the best, is to compare it to a Glock 19. Well, I don't just happen to have at this moment a Glock 19 available to me. However, I do have a Glock 23. And if you know anything about Glocks, you know that the Glock 19 and the Glock 23 are identical in every dimension and in every way, other than the caliber they're bored for. So here's the Glock on the bottom and the SIG on the top. You can see that the SIG is extremely shorter than the Glock 19/23, and height-wise it is also significantly, well, I say significantly, it's not all that, depends on what that word means, but you've got a good 1/4 of an inch more height on the Glock there, and width-wise they seem to be close, but still slightly favoring, I think, the SIG. The Glock is skinnier up top around the slide, but the frame, SIG doesn't add any weight or any girth to that frame, so where Glock does a little bit, so kind of an advantage there. In terms of being Glock-like, it's very sleek. And as far as controls go, you've got a trigger, you've got a mag release, and you've got a slide stop, and then you've got a takedown lever, and that's it. Now, the takedown lever is the only thing you wouldn't see on a Glock, right? Because Glock has this type of takedown, and that is a little bit obtrusive. It does stick out there quite a bit. You can see here, but it's not. If you're used to an M&P, or you're used to a Springfield Armory, or several other types that use this type, or even other SIGs. Now, the only difference is, instead of this being flat, you see the way they angled that? Kind of turned that out a bit. Let me give it to you this way. Made that stick out a little bit more. I don't know that that was really necessary, but that's added something to it. So yeah, it'll be interesting as I form a two-handed shooting grip, because a lot of times what happens is, and you can see right here, my natural two-hand grip puts my thumb, wants to sit right on that takedown lever. Now, I'm not afraid that I'm going to accidentally disassemble the pistol while I'm shooting it, but that can be irritating. So I'm going to have to ride my thumb just underneath it. We'll see. We'll see how it is shooting it. Sometimes things you don't really notice bug the heck out of you when you're shooting a gun, and sometimes the opposite. Things like something like this that you would think, oh my God, that's really going to be annoying, and I may not even notice it at all when I'm shooting. So we'll see. The mag release is a good one. It's nice sized. It's triangular in shape, but it's a good size, and it works very easily. So the spring tension is not real stiff, so it allows you to do a quick mag release, and it's a very positive ejection. Mag obviously drops quite free. Not only does the mag drop free, it pretty much shoots out of there. The texturing on the pistol is feels good. It's a lot like the new E2 grips on the 227s and 226s and so forth, 220s, if the full-size pistols that have that new E2 grip. This texturing is very much like that. So it gives you a really good hold. I like the feel of it, and it's not abrasive. It doesn't dig into or bite into your skin, but it gives you a really good gripping surface. So I'll know more about how I feel about that when I shoot it. Trigger guard is nice. It's got a good undercut here to the trigger guard. It's a pretty sleek trigger guard, but there's actually a decent amount of room out front. Now compared to a Glock, I'd say it's similar, but you can see where it's rounded up at the front instead of squared off like a Glock. And so, if you're wearing a full-size glove and you've got decent size meat hooks, that may be something to consider. It may not work too well for you. You'd have to try that out. But you also do not have, for those 3 or 4 people that actually still like to use their forefinger out front on the trigger guard type of grip, you're not going to have anything here for that. There's no serrations. There's no squared off area. It's a nice looking gun. It's the fit and finish is really nice on it. I like the polymer. It's probably a glass-filled polymer or nylon of some sort, but it's got a nice feel to it. It feels like quality. The fit looks and feels like quality. It is a SIG Sauer, so I do have an expectation of that anyway, but so this is, like I say, this is the P320 that you really could carry. This could be a carry gun because it is the one that's smaller than a Glock 19. And as down the road, I'll compare this size-wise. I'll compare it to some other things to give you a good idea. But I figured comparing it to a 19/23 is probably the best way to start out. This is the more familiar size to everybody. Pistol does come with 2 magazines. It'd be nice if it came with 3. 3 is always better, but we'll take what we get. Made in Italy, so these are Mekgar magazines. Good quality. Talked about capacity, right? 12 rounds, 12 plus 1, so that's good. And in a very small size, the grip is very thin. I was kind of surprised how thin they were able to keep this grip, and again, the shortness is nice because that's a key, probably the key measurement. How tall the pistol is and how thick the pistol is. And I think height, to me, height I think is even more important because you can buy your pants an inch bigger and wear a bigger shirt or whatever if the thickness of a pistol that you want to carry is an issue. But if it's too tall and you've got a whole lot of butt sticking out that's going to want to print every time you lean over, that's a much harder thing to compensate for. So I think they've done a nice job here of producing a legitimate concealed carry size SIG Sauer polymer framed striker fired pistol. Can't wait to try it out. See how this thing shoots. See how it handles. It's small, it's light. See how it feels. Let's do the first 100 with this thing. Alright, so the way you take this gun down is pretty simple and pretty intuitive, I think. But you basically, like most pistols that have a teardown lever like this, you would go ahead and lock the slide back. Easiest way to do that sometimes is to keep the magazine in it. Lock the slide back, drop your magazine. Of course, by doing it that way, we know the pistol's empty now once we inspect the chamber. Okay, then you rotate the takedown lever clockwise, quarter of a turn till it's straight up and down, or as far as it'll go, basically. Okay, and then you just take the tension off the slide. So we're going to pull the slide back a little bit and then let it come forward. No need to pull the trigger. Slide just comes right off. Okay, so this is brand new from the factory. This is how they pack them in. This is, look at this, it's got all this like white liquid in there, like white grease. Kind of reminds me of in the first Alien movie when they beat the snot out of the android and he spewed all that white liquid all over. Anyway, my mind works in mysterious ways. So that's the, now this is, all of this that you see in here is what's called, really what's considered the frame of the gun and considered the chassis, if you will. And that is the registered firearm part. I use the word registered, I mean designated or whatever. I don't mean it in the bad, nasty way. But that's the part that is considered the actual firearm. So you can remove this chassis, and then you can, and the whole trigger, the whole fire group assembly, and then you can put that into a different frame and even put a different slide on it, chambered for a different caliber, without technically changing guns. You're just re-accessorizing, if you will. And the serial number is, this is a see-through window. The serial number is on that piece. So that is the serialized firearm. Very, very cool. Slide, we have a kind of a normal looking striker fired slide, but you know, like SIG Sauer always does, they've taken it kind of to another level and really polished it up. But here's your striker lug right there, and then you've just got some really kind of cool stuff around that. I don't know if that's a safety lever right there. I'm gonna have to study a little bit and find out. The barrel, of course, we've got a dual recoil spring and guide rod assembly. You see right here. Now here is something to note about this. If you can see that in this, well, let me just take it out and make it easier for you. The rear plate on the guide rod assembly is kind of oval shaped. So you got like rounded top and rounded bottom and then squared off sides. I'm getting that crap on me. Okay, it's very important to note when you reassemble the pistol that it has to go in this orientation. Round part has to go down and up, and the straight parts go to the side. That's the only thing really different, or something you have to pay attention of. You can't put it in this is wrong. You can damage the gun if you put it in this way. It has to go this way. Okay. Now, how easy it is to screw that up, I can't really say, but I think you could. I think you probably could screw it up. So you have to remember when you reassemble it to get that in there oriented the right way. So that's the only kind of caveat for that. It's a pretty strong dual spring. Very similar to the Glock Gen 4, except that the inner spring is a wound spring rather than a single spring. And then we have a flat spring on the outside. And the barrel, again, is a 3.6 inch. It is a conventional rifling barrel. So unlike a Glock, if you want to shoot lead through this, you can do that. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. I presume they test fired this at the factory, but otherwise, it's still quite virginal. Has not been fired yet. Alright, so again, making sure we orient that correctly. And I don't know, I don't want to purposely put it together backwards or wrong until I know more about it. Because I don't want to damage anything, but I don't know if it's even, you know, if it would feel different to you or whatever. But that's important to know that it does have to go together a certain way. So, that trigger does feel nice. It's got a really short reset and a really nice break. Sounds funny, but that's That's a really nice. This is interesting too. That's actually not doing anything, but it clicks instead of just being a dead trigger. Now it's got just a little bit of take-up. It doesn't have all that much take-up either. There is no trigger safety built into the trigger. It's a smooth-faced trigger. Actually feels really nice too because of that. It's got a nice generous toe out here that comes forward quite a bit. That should help you stay in the sweet spot. It should kind of force your finger up into the sweet spot of the trigger rather than dragging the toe. I know a lot of people drag the toe. Cool. All right. So here's a couple of quick questions that you might have about the P320 SUBCOMPACT. And that is, well, how big is it compared to the P320 Compact, the one that we might be a little bit more familiar with, the one that's gotten all the attention? Well, let's find out. Here is the P320 Compact in two-tone, and here they are side by side. So the SUBCOMPACT is on the bottom, and you can see that it's just a little bit shorter, probably a ½ inch or so. And the thickness is just about exactly the same. That slide looks to me to be identical in thickness, right? And then you have the height, which is quite a bit different. You've got a good ½ inch, maybe a little bit more of height, and that's a very important measurement. And then the thickness is also significant. So you can see how much thinner the SUBCOMPACT is compared to the Compact. And you can also here in this view really kind of see that height difference too. So when you're talking about a carry gun, huge difference between these two. So if you're familiar with or you have the 320 Compact, the SUBCOMPACT is definitely smaller, and it's smaller in the key areas. Right? So they really did pay attention to the right. I mean, somebody who carries was involved. It's thinner, very much so, and it is definitely shorter in this height right here. So those are really the key dimensions. Now, you may have another question. You may say, well, gee, are the magazines interchangeable? Yes, they are. You can take the 15-round magazine from the Compact and put it in the SUBCOMPACT. Yeah, it's going to stick out a little bit, but if you're shooting this thing at the range, why not, right? And might there be an extended magazine come out sometime in the near future? Could be.